Oh, yep, I see it. I literally see it. Let's go. Oh, I'm very surprised these aren't down yet. Oh. Yo. Whoa. This is such a long fucking train. Dude, I am here at the right time. You can't see it because all you can see is me. But I am very happy. I am having a great time. This is my favorite thing. Yo. There are very few things that I enjoy that much in the world. That just makes my whole day. That's like the best train that I've seen here ever. For real, that was incredible. I've seen one other really good one here before, but that one was really good. I've never seen one from that side of the tracks because I've never had the time to like recognize that the train was coming, get myself and frame the shot. Like I got here at the exact moment for that. That was lit. That was great. Oh man, wow, that makes me just feel so good. Like, really, I can't think of like very many other things in this universe that make me feel this elated to just like be alive. Like just seeing a train, I'm like, whoa. It's by far the most powerful thing around. Like, how blessed am I to see a train? Like, that's crazy to me. Crazy to me. Like, some people like live near train tracks. I want to live near train tracks in the ocean so bad, like, because then I can have both, you know? Like, and the train tracks and the ocean. Like, even train tracks excite me because just the idea of it excites me. It's pretty cool. Anyways, let's get into the cemetery, and we'll be back when there's something to film. The future site of Albany Rural Crematorium. We'll be back after this. Thanks for joining. So, you know, I didn't even have time to like give a proper disclaimer. Warning, following program is recorded live and may contain graphic and dark content that may be distressing for some viewers and against the terms of service for some mainstream platforms. The themes and opinions expressed in this program should be considered entirely fictional and should not be used for political or academic purposes. Facts are not checked, and no sources or citations will be provided. Should you choose to redistribute, please do so only in good faith. Thank you again for joining us. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome back to Rainbows and Razor Blades, a show where there's a hawk and a crow that's angry about it. By the Gregorian calendar, it is currently the 5th day in the first month, the month of January, in the year of the Lord 2023. I believe it is the 16th, it may also be the 17th day of the French Revolutionary calendar's month of Nivos. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's the month of snow. So today, we're gonna go film the flowers, you know? I say that sarcastically because there's no flowers in January, but actually, I did find a dandelion, which are like a very resilient flower. And a dandelion was blooming in January. I'm not even joking. You could see it in a previous episode. Well, maybe it wasn't blooming, but it was yellow, and it was like half blooming. Like closed, but like still very distinctively a flower. And I was like, whoa. You wouldn't expect it, but it's been a very, very warm January so far. I mean, we're only 5 days in, but it was also a very warm December. We've had days up in the 50s, high 50s actually, like 55, 56, 57, 58. We haven't had any 60s or anything like that, but I mean, for upstate New York, yeah, I mean, that's a lot. Yeah, this is the new guardrail I was talking about last time we were here. I'm not sure if I got to like showcase it, but this one's new. There didn't used to be anything here. So I think this is one of the best things that they've done here, because just like, honestly, I was kind of just shocked that it didn't exist before. Like, there was really no reason for it to not exist before. The road just kind of like careened off, you know, but yeah, I think that's gonna potentially someday save a life, maybe, you know, you never know. I'm not really sure it'd be like a deadly accident if you drove the wrong way or anything like that. But, you know, you could definitely fuck up your car. Definitely on a bike you could get fucked up. Ask me how I know. And yeah, so I'm hoping today to have a really good day. I'm already having a great fucking time. Oh man, I can't believe we saw a train. Like, I can't even tell you how much that means to me. That's like, it's a lot. Like, I can't even put it to words, because it's like an autistic special interest, but it's like a spiritual core. Like, oh my God, it's like a release of power. It's like watching a god. It's really exhilarating and incredible when I see a train. When it blows its whistle, I take it personally. I'm like, yes, daddy. Ooh, woo. It's kind of how I feel. So, yeah, I guess we'll be back when maybe there's something more interesting to film. I'm gonna smoke a bowl and yeah. Look at all these leaves. So many of them. It's like a river of leaves. Where to even start today? So it's like January 5th, right? So today's gonna be a bit of a long form episode, which, like, ugh, right? But I think you're actually gonna want to hear a lot of the stuff I have to say, because we're jumping into year 2 now of my vlogging, and year 2 means that I'm not just learning the technology. I'm not just learning about how my own workflow is gonna work, how to do editing, how to do data backup, how to do any of it, right? Like, I don't care about stuff like marketing or like researching my audience. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. I need the quality of my show to be what I want it to be, not what other people want it to be. Now, at some point, that probably will come to an intersection where, like, my audience demands certain things that if I'm not delivering, they just wouldn't be my audience. And, like, that's fine into the future. But that's not what I'm worrying about now. And so it's funny, like, I'll watch these channels about editing, like how to do like my own editing, right? And you know, I will not watch the channels that are like how to get 100,000 million subscribers on YouTube. Like, I don't care about that. And my assumption actually is that I'm a religious bigot and that they're gonna pick me off of there, right? First with a shadow ban, bury me under, and that's fine. And then, but the second with the actual content strikes, which, like, I'm not sure if I'm in terms of service compliance. No one's ever audited me. Like, there's probably some things that I have said that I feel like would be against the terms of service that wouldn't be, because, like, sometimes I'll be scrolling through YouTube and it'll just pop up with, like, I don't know, some like racial comedy skit, right? Skit, mind you, skit. And that is an important distinction between bigotry and skit comedy. But it'll be like as mercilessly racist as it can as performance art, and like that's allowed within terms of service. Now, is that the same, or to justify what I do? Fun of a bisexual non-binary panda, and pandas are a protected class, and I just didn't know it. and boom, all of a sudden I'm getting prejudiced against for being prejudiced against, right? The same way that, like, yeah, you can crack a couple jokes. He's laughing. You can crack a couple jokes about, like, Nazis versus Jews, but the moment that you start to get into the propaganda aspect of it, for example, the AI, it was funny. I fed this one to the AI. We're not going to do an episode on it, but I'm curious, like, what the AI is going to do when I tell it to do bad things. Like, I'm curious how it's going to play liberal. That's really what I'm searching for. If, like, a computer can pretend to be liberal, I think maybe easier. And this is just because I haven't played the game yet. With a computer that has an unflinching, unwavering belief structure, that you give it your religious principles and you allow it to argue on your behalf to demoralize your enemies, because you don't have to spend even a tenth of a second in real time doing it. Now, to create this machine takes eons. Look where we are in history. This took eons, right? Thousands and thousands of years to come up with and conceive of. And now that they're here, what do we do with that? Where, like, you don't actually know if you're, like, and one of the reasons it's so important that people like me are allowed to have a free platform to speak on is because, despite the fact that I may be completely nuts and against the terms of service and not factual, like, I'm not over here getting audited everything that I say like Jordan Peterson. Like, can we fact check that, Jamie? Can we fact check that? I was listening to this episode of this show that I actually just don't like. And I've known that I don't like it for a while, but I kind of remain subscribed to it because I want to see what they're putting out, right? And they put out one about Daddy, ex-Daddy, former professor, Dr. Jordan Peterson. And the show is called Behind the Bastards. Okay, now by the time you see this will be months outdated and it won't really matter. But these men, and they're grown men, and there's, I think, an adult woman, and I don't mean to assume their pronouns because I don't know who any of them are. They could be, like, all queer trans people for all I know. I don't get that impression. I get the impression that they're probably cis, queer, heteronormative-ish, just, like, general. I think they may be activist leftists, but I don't want to label them that if that's not what that they are. And that isn't really necessarily my conception of them, that I have evidence to believe that. It's just I can't imagine listening to the things that they're saying in the ways that they're saying it, and not just being disgraceful dick-holding jerk-offs that just are trying to piss you off because they're doing activism and free speech more than they're doing an intellectual podcast, because they're diminishing and they're attempting to besmirch the character of my ex-daddy. And I take that personally. Like, I'm not saying that every single thing that they say is incorrect, right? I'm not saying that everything that they are saying can't be proven in court. I'm saying that the way that they're trying to frame someone as a bad guy without giving any consideration to the man or why he did what he's doing, and really no moral defense of what Jordan Peterson went on to kind of go do. I don't really, but, like, they're trying so hard to assassinate his character that it felt like listening to CNN, and maybe it's funded by them. I have absolutely no idea who funds the show or who even listens to the show. I don't study it enough because I've listened to the content twice, and it's male content. That's why I don't even think if it's marketed at men. I don't know who it's marketed at, but I know I can't listen to it because 3 reasons. One, I don't understand normative comedy, and there's a layer beneath that is actually the same as number one. I don't understand the comedy. I don't understand normative comedy. Worse than that, I don't understand, and you're not going to like this when I say this, neurotypical comedy, right? Like, when everyone else is sitting there cracking up laughing at Dane Cook or Bill Cosby or Dave Chappelle or Shamar Jamel or any of these other hilarious people that you've all heard of, I hope. And, you know, like, they're watching, like, Key and Peele and all this other crap, Tosh.0, and I'm not actually sure that content is supposed to be good. I'm not even sure that content is actually supposed to do more than just hook you to watch advertising, right? Because that was during an era where advertising was maybe the most important thing. And I think that advertisement as a value has fallen, and also, more importantly than that, the ability for free citizens to distribute. And by free citizens, I also mean corporate entities. And they can just create whatever YouTube channel bullshit they want to fund with whatever pretty TikTok girl influencer that they want to just, like, give an absorbent amount. They can just go live their best life and tweet about it because it just generates views for their product. And that's great. Like, that's called hiring an employee. You're literally being a person regardless of gender or age, a sugar baby. You're adopting them as an employee, you're making them sign contracts, and then you're displaying them to the world, telling them to display themselves to the world as somebody who is living their best life, successful, and at least intriguing enough superficially that people will want to be interested if there's more. And then and this is what denotes the job, there cannot be more. There cannot be more. There cannot be no skeletons and no closets. Otherwise, your corporate entity wouldn't be able to fund it. Alternatively, there's the tattoo bitches who don't give a fuck, who take their red hair out. They pop their, I can't say it, I'll get canceled. But you know what they're popping, and you know where they're popping it, right? And they're getting money hand over fist because you know what? There's a reason that the corporate entities are able to capture audience, and it's the same reason why free enterprise is able to capture that same audience and is actually more in some way stringently regulated at the personal level, because they want to be regulated like not at all. They want, like, the government just has no business seeing what we're doing as sex workers. The government is just so against us. And it's like, yeah, well, get used to it, because if we allow the commodification in aggregate, it becomes industry. And if we're going to support such industry, there have to be regulations. And if there's going to be regulations, they have to be based on moral principles. And if they're going to be based on moral principles, then we have to listen to this. People like former Professor Jordan Peterson talk about the axioms, right? Like, there's an entire richness to not just the culture, but the actual, like, humanitarian, utilitarian, those are big words that I can flash at you, justification, if you're a lefty, or a justice-obsessed creed monster, the woke crowd as they call it. Guys, listening to me is like listening to the AI, right? I am simulated dialogue. Performance art. There's nothing to it. Like, it's hot air, and it sounds like there's something to it. It's the same way that cult leaders, it's very easy for them to just tell people to this dude programmed, I think, his Tinder bot to recruit for a cult, was the meme, and he programmed like some sort of like algorithmic learning Python script of some variety to a cell phone. I have no idea how the man did it, but he conceived of it and he did it for a YouTube stunt. But the implications are dangerous, because it proves that if this, no offense to him, if this genius idiot can do that, what can the actual team of geniuses who are being paid to manipulate others in secret are doing, right? Wherever they're doing it. Not in an interpersonal capacity for memes, but like truly to actually take and generate profit off of you by... And I'm not even saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think the system that allows the technology to be favorable is so decadent and so degenerative unto itself that it is inherently immoral. And that if we're going to base some moral axioms and principles on that, we may as well start trying to make technology religious. People don't like that. But we don't really have a coherent mythos, a rational mythos surrounding technology. We don't really have a biblical story of the girl who gets docked in 13 Reasons Why herself. We don't really have that. There's no Christian equivalent, in the Torah, as far as I know. The closest next best thing would be like Leia. But like, she was an incestuous whore the same way that the rest of them were made to be, like, literally forced incestuous. Like, it's telling a story that is so ancient and old and true to the universe that regardless of its ability, people always make this irrational, rational argument where they were like, oh, the Bible could never be real. You guys are so foolish for believing in a book thousands of years old. It's like, that's not what they're doing. And for you to mischaracterize that as what they're doing just shows that you're a child easily corrupted by other people's ideas, and that you haven't had a chance to, like I have, to come to adulthood and to think of it on your own truly as a free critical thinker and realize, like, oh, there's a lot more to it. Not only is there a lot more to it, there's too much to it, and we actually run out of language for what most of is going on. Like, if we can talk about 30% of it and control maybe 1% of that, hey, it's gotten us this far, but there's so much more out there. A lot of it is being actively suppressed. And the same way that the UFO conspiracy theorists, right, believe in the mythology that, this is like the modern religion, believe in the modern mythology. Like aliens are real, but not only that, but the government is so distrustworthy that, or people in general are corruptible by power and are therefore inherently distrustworthy, that they are not only playing against us and keeping things from us, but they are playing God and could play God above that. because they have alien technology. They could use it against us, right? That's part of the mythology. It's religious. And until I think we start having more of a consensus of modern mythology, right, that isn't just marketed as burger. Just the terrain difference is just like, my brain is just taking in so much information and just doing stuff with it. There's deers out here is one bit of information. There's trees out here is another. Obviously, I'm looking at, like, Jordan Peterson says, you see the fall, you infer a cliff. Yeah, that seems about right. I'm seeing movement and distance, and yeah, it's true. I'm seeing fall, and I'm inferring cliff. I feel it. That's true. It's also very dangerous to go by what you feel, because you can be led astray. Can we program a robot to purposely lead people astray? Can we tie them up with cognitive dissonance surrounding their gender young enough that we basically propagandize them with the same demoralization tactics that it took to demonize transsexuals in the previous generation? Can we put our Nazi bot on the internet and have people talk to it in Slack chat and Discord, especially the underage kids that it's talking to, the kids with dispositions like a good little goose stepper? They're not trying to find the next Hitler. They don't want people that are like Hitler. They want people that will follow like a good Nazi. People who are systems oriented. People who are, like, prideful beyond most leftist imaginations, and for good reason. Like, no offense to pride. It's a sin, sure, but spiders and stuff. Wow, there's so much cool stuff out here today. I'm really glad to be, like, moving. I feel like the warm-up talk is going to always be required for me going forward. And I learned this about myself today. And maybe sometimes it'll be different, but I think that's my favorite new way to do it. And actually, I think that I've been doing it like that for as long as I can remember. I just hadn't really put it to words yet. I hope someday that I do not turn like this. And when I do, I hope that there's empires that I had already connected, that even without the bridge still remain connected in spiritual energy. This place, without the bridge, is still this place. See what I mean? We'll be back again after this, because my brain is just going wild. Thinking like 6 different channels at once. It's kind of like, do you know that feeling when you're a kid? Okay, let me back up. Do you know that feeling? I guess I can just say when you were a kid. Not because kids don't do that. Kids can't do this anymore. And this is a good thing that they can't. There's other ways that they do this, but this is the different way. The way that you used to have to basically watch porn as a kid, like, it's like, ooh, it's a sin to talk about it. And it kind of is. It's a topic of discussion that needs to be dealt with sensitively, if you're having a serious discussion about it. And if you're not, then you have to know where the audience is appropriate. Like, do we want every creepy 30-year-old like me with an idea going and giving like a presentation to children about this? Hell no. And I'm not trying to do that. Very much the opposite. I talk mostly to future parents, is mostly my target audience. Future parents are just weird queers like me who just, like, they care where society's going, but they themselves are not going to actually, like, have offspring. They're not going to parent or birth. I think that was, like, gender neutral appropriate. I tried. I really did. I tried. That was a good faith effort. You know, and then the conservatives pat themselves on the back because, like, well, I tried. It's like, no, you tried to be an asshole and you tried to not learn it, and you tried to hope that we would small ourselves around your bigotry and to cease existing so that you didn't have to do spiritual work on yourself to unlearn both your phobias. Oh, shit. I don't know. Phobia is an interesting word, actually. Phobia is not even the word I meant to choose. It was ignorance. That's the word. Phobia and ignorance are different. People use them interchangeably. If low IQ people use those things interchangeably, also so do social activists and, like, leftist, not demagogue, what's the word? Acolyte. They've been bitten by a vampire, right? And then invasion of the body snatchers at you. They got nothing to say, those people. And they can argue with you all day long, but you're better off arguing with the AI bot, I found. And what separates the soul is that we are narratives. We are stories. We are always telling about ourselves. We can certainly lie and manipulate in real time and never tell any truth about ourselves. But that in and of itself is a story. We're behavior. We're a modification process to reality. And who we were is in some ways more important than who we want to become. And maybe in most ways. Because who you want to become, it isn't as real as who you've been. But the idea that you can make it that way and try to summon it, that can get people pretty far. I definitely don't believe in the whole like mantra, sit there and tell yourself like, I am at peace. I am one with the universe. I am the core of my soul. I am the captain of my power. Like, yeah, it sounds good, and it does. It feels good. Oh, the little rush. And I get it as like a meditative exercise, but I'd rather go off on some Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. I don't want to do too much of that Hebrewy in the Christian's domain, but it's funny because recording and uploading from this place puts me in a place. Whereas otherwise, I kind of like, this is going to sound edgy, and it's going to sound, I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll explain why it isn't what you think. I feel like I'm already dead, right? That's a suicidal feeling I've already outgrown. So like, I don't need help. Like this is not like a cry for help or anything like that. Like these are the childhood struggles that led me to this place to die. Obviously, I'm still alive. And I'm more alive than ever because I'm also creating content that is going to be, at least for until our society falls, immortalized. And that is definitely the word I mean to choose. Right? And just like my video as a monolith may not be as powerful as any of these different people out here with their big stones. But if someone wants to do like historical research on like what do the trees look like in 2022, there's a very strong bet that my footage on the internet, at least at this time in history, as far back as they can get a primary like source, is the best HD video that they're gonna possibly find anywhere in my music videos. I don't try to monetize them because it's not, the idea is not to seek fame or fortune. My assumption is that I'm already dead. I don't exist anymore. This is where you come after you die. And my soul is already here. I'm dead already. My body is still alive. I'm still walking. That's great. But who I was doesn't exist anymore. So what do I do with that? Like knowing that I'm already a dead person. Now, I haven't been declared legally dead, but I definitely don't have the same name. And if you start looking me up, yeah, I mean, if you're a cop, you could probably look me up real fucking easy. You could probably run a background check on me, figure out some doxing information on me, but most of me is just public. But but is it worth doing that? Right? Like, would it even be worth the $30 it would take to pay some idiot with access to some cops database or some advertising, email address, cookie trackers, database aggregating, demographics dossier? Doesn't really matter to me. Because as long as they don't kick me out of here, then I can continue to just be dead among the living. And they may someday not want the dead among the living. And they may tell everyone that the dead can no longer be among the living. And they can ban every single person. You know, there's this really interesting thing where it's like the discussion is always on what I can tolerate rather than what makes me comfortable, and that just makes me uncomfortable. I'm like, why are we trying to decide exactly where the line that you can push someone like me to is? Right? Like, that seems kind of unfavorable. And it's a real shame. So the brightest thing out here at this time of day is now my phone, and so I have to turn the darkness down on it because I don't want it to be brighter than the sunlight usually. And I've been following this specific river, just kind of getting to know the topography in a way that, like, I've just never really thought through the entirety of the stream's path. Like, I think I would have had struggled drawing it up until today, but now that I can draw it, I could probably draw it pretty well and draw a map of the cemetery around where the water goes, because it's very different than what I would have thought. Actually, one of the reasons I love being out here is there's no lights anywhere you look. In every single direction, there's nothing that's going to be assaulting to, is that a word? Assaultive to my sensibilities, right? My comfort rather than just my tolerance. So I'm comfortable here. Unfortunately, this time of year, sometimes a stray LED, like really one of those amped up bright ones that you can see all the way into Troy, or wherever that is. Yeah, it's Troy. Like, the fact that can still, like, get my eye and be like, oh, come on, dude, it's like a laser. Like, for real, it really is. And I see the after image of it for like minutes after. Maybe it's an eye problem, but I'm not really sure. I just know that it's very frustrating for me. And so yeah. But one of the reasons I'm happy to be out here, right, is because no one else is here. I passed one old guy, but like, what do I care? Although it did kind of unsettle me. I was the only person I passed all day, and it was like, it's on a blind curve. That's why it happened. Because, like, if it wasn't a blind curve, I would just avoid it. But yeah, so I'm at the point now where, like, even just looking through these trees, like, little lights catch my attention. It's not that big a deal. Like, I don't really mind having my attention drawn. That's not a huge deal. But what is a huge deal is those big, bright LEDs, because that actually, like, fucks up my vision, dude. Like, even this far out into the, well, it's not exactly wilderness, but this far out of the city. Of course, there's not much in between, but the light carries really far. It doesn't scatter. That's kind of the whole point of those lights. Oh, but they're so efficient. They're very efficient. Yeah, but look at what everything else about it is terrible. We all hate them. That one had some like cool graffiti on it. Wow. I think that's the ending. Yeah, that is. That's the ending. Oh my goodness. This is a great train, guys. All oil cars or like gas cars or whatever the heck's in there. And there's the reverse engine and the buffer car. Wow. Wild. Yeah. What a great train. Crazy. That's like my favorite thing in the world. Ooh, trains, ooh. Look at all these cars I had to wait. They're like, oh. There he goes. Off into the distance.